This is a podcast from Minute Media.
Hello and welcome to the Over and Back Classic NBA podcast. I am Jason, and with me as usual is Rich. Hello, Rich.
Hey, what's going on?
You know, just going through some best players on a championship team. So this is part 2 of our episode. We looked at the years from 1946 to 1974 in part 1. We're going to get cracking on part 2 as well. What do you think so far, Rich?
Yeah, I think it was it was a pretty fun experiment. I know when we first had this idea of doing this show, I kind of figured that it would be pretty easy, you know, that we would be able to do this in one tight, needy episode and just kind of say, you know what, yeah, it's like, you know, these few years are up for debate, you know, 2004 Pistons are up for debate, and this year, but like, I couldn't believe how many were up for legitimate debates when you went and looked at them, because you kind of always think, you know, there's always at least one, you know, every championship team seems to have one dominant star or one guy that's like, you know, head and shoulders above the other, or like a couple dominant stars, but it's very clear that this one person was like emerged, you know, as the top guy for that year. But like, it was pretty spread out when we were doing this, and there was a lot of years that I was really like, oh wow, we're gonna actually have like a real discussion about some of these guys. So that made it a lot of fun, and yeah, I think the same thing is going to happen with this part 2. Again, I didn't even think we were going to get a part 2. And yeah, I think part 2 is going to have many, many, many fun debates with a lot of, you know, modern teams where you could really make a case for a few guys, and especially so because for most of these, you know, you and I both watch these in real time, so we can maybe give a little bit more of our actual thoughts of, hey, when we were watching it, it felt like X was, you know, the best player on this team, or that Y was the reason why this team won. You know, a little tougher to do that, you know, in the 50s when I wasn't watching the games, and I don't believe you were either, Jason. But
not
yeah,
that old,
no, yeah, you're old, but you're not that old. Yeah, I don't think you're that much older than me, right? Like, I don't know why I would say that. That's so mean. I apologize, but
it really was terrible. Yeah,
I really apologize for that. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
But yeah, the more recent ones, we've seen these in real time, so I think that'll make for fun debates as well. And most of our listeners have seen these as well. So this might, you know, I think part 1, a lot of people are like, yeah, you guys made some good picks, or yeah, they're pretty solid. I think part 2 might get some like, hey, you guys are absolutely wrong. It's definitely this guy, which will be fun. I like that.
Terrible. We love to be yelled at. So
yeah. Fun yelled at, constructively yelled at. Yeah.
Right. Yes, not mean yelled at, not called names.
That makes me sad and depressed.
Right.
So
it does make me sad and depressed. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to recap who we've selected so far. So these are, of course, ones that we discussed and came to conclusions to in the prior episode, plus ones that off the top we realized, yeah, there's no reason to debate these. So I will go through the list. We begin with George the Blind Bomber Glamock, 1946 Royals. So the Blind Bomber made his way into our hearts. It was a wonderful time for all of us. Joe Folks, 1947 Warriors. Buddy Jeanette, the 1948 original Baltimore Bullets. Frankie Bryan, 1949 Anderson Packers, the last year of the NBL. Arnie Rison, 1951 Royals. George Mikan from 1947 to 1950 and 52 to 54. Most of those with Minneapolis Lakers. Dolph Schayes, 1955 Nationals, now the 76ers. Paul Aronson, 1956 Warriors. Bob Cousy, 1957 Celtics, might get some controversy over that pick. Bob Pettit, 1958, less likely to instigate controversy. Bill Russell, 1959 to 1966, all 8 championships in a row for the Celtics. Wilt Chamberlain in 67 and 72. Connie Hawkins, 1968 for the Pittsburgh Pipers. John Havlicek, 3 times for the Celtics in 68, 69, and 74. Might be a little bit of surprise there. Warren Jabali for the 1969 Oakland Oaks. Roger Brown for the 1970 Pacers. Willis Reed for the 1970 Knicks. Zelmo Beatty for the 1971 Utah Stars. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the 1971 Bucks. Mel Daniels for the 1972 Pacers. Walt Frazier for the 73 Knicks. George McGinnis for the 73 Pacers, making the Pacers 3 players for 3 different years for their dynasty. Interesting things. Julius Erving, 74 and 76 Nets. Artis Gilmore for the 75 Kentucky Colonels. Rick Barry for the 75 Warriors. Dave Cowens for the 76 Celtics. Bill Walton for the 77 Blazers. Magic Johnson, 82, 87, and 88 Lakers. Larry Bird for the 84 and 86 Celtics. Michael Jordan for all the Bulls dynasty years. Akeem Olajuwon for the 94 and 95 Rockets. Shaquille O'Neal for the 2000 and 2002 Lakers. 2001 we're going to talk about here. Tim Duncan for the 03 Spurs, and we're going to talk about the other Spurs years. Dwayne Wade for the 2006 Heat, Dirk Nowitzki for the 2011 Mavericks, LeBron James 2012, 2013, and 2016, Steph Curry for the 2015 and 2022 Warriors, who just won the championship. The other years we will discuss. Kawhi Leonard for the 2019 Raptors, and Giannis Antetokounmpo for the 2021 Bucks. And woo, that's a lot of names.
Yeah, that was, man, congratulations. I was wondering when it feel like you wanted me to take over at some point, or you needed a breath, or you were going to pass out, or just you had to take a breather for a minute.
All right.
Get your
Thank
stuff
you.
back. Yeah,
Okay.
But that was good.
Woo.
Congratulations.
Right.
Yeah, that was a lot of names and a lot of years. And a
lot
of
of guys.
dudes. Yeah, a lot of guys. I will probably
Yeah.
in the show post, if you check this out at Fansided, we'll probably because we have like a spreadsheet and stuff, and we can include a full list of this as well. If it's easier to read this as opposed to just hearing us
might
talk
be.
about it.
No, I expect all of our listeners to commit this to memory. They should know who we
right.
Pop
quiz. Who was 1971?
Right. Exactly.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. No, Zelma Beatty also. You idiot.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
You
two
idiot.
people.
How could you forget
Dummy.
Zelmo?
The ABA.
Bastards. Yeah. What the hell?
48. Buddy Jeanette. If you don't say Buddy Jeanette within 15 seconds, like what are you even doing? You know what I mean?
All right.
So,
Yeah.
what
What
fan are you? Fake fans, all the whole lot of you.
Fans. Yes.
The whole lot of you.
No respect for the Baltimore Bullets, the original Bullets.
Yeah, the original. Not that Baltimore Bullets, but kind of that Baltimore Bullets, but not really that Baltimore Bullets. Anyway,
Sure.
yes.
Right. Anyway. All right.
Speaking of the actual Baltimore Bullets, the one that you remember.
Yeah.
That was good. I didn't even mean to do that.
Yeah.
1978. Let's start with them. Let's make some cases here. They're the Washington Bullets at this time. But anyway,
Right.
I had to do the transition, and then I could tell you that they're not the Baltimore Bullets anymore. They're the Washington Bullets. But they were the Baltimore Bullets, but now they're the Washington Bullets, and this is in 1978, and they won the title. And now we have cases for, I believe, two guys strongly and maybe a third. Wes Unseld, Elvin Hayes are my definite ones, and Bob Dandridge might make an interesting case here. We'll get to him in a second.
Sure.
So who was the best player for the 44-win NBA champion Washington Bullets? Yeah, very weird here where a 44-win team, I just would love to see, obviously in a full season, not like a lockout season or a COVID season or whatever, a 44-win team go and make it to the NBA Finals. Like, what would that be? Like, who was a 44-win team in last year's NBA? I'm trying to think of who was
Like the Hawks, basically. Yeah.
right. Like, that would be so weird where you're like, oh, yeah, the Hawks.
Yeah.
Like, the Cleveland Cavaliers,
Sure.
Jared Allen is the best player on the 44-win Cleveland Cavaliers champion. That would actually rock.
Yeah.
That should happen again. But it's shockingly close here. Regular season-wise, Elvin Hayes scored 19.7 points per game over 81 games. He also grabbed 13.3 rebounds per game. Not bad. Bob Dandridge had similar scoring numbers, 19.3, so slightly below Elvin Hayes. An otherwise well-rounded season for Bob Dandridge. Wes Unseld, though, I mean, obviously his scoring was low, as it kind of usually was, at 7.6 points per game. But he did have 11.9 rebounds per game. Now, win shares-wise, Elvin Hayes is the clear pick. He was at 8.3 win shares. If we're just going by that, he would be your pick. But Bob Dandridge follows at 6.8. And Unseld, despite the low scoring numbers, because he was a good defender and because he was able to do so many other things, he ties Dandridge at 6.8 in the regular season. Now, the playoffs follow a very similar path with Elvin Hayes at 21.8 points per game, 13.3 rebounds per game. Dandridge right behind him at 21.2 points per game. Unseld, solid as always, at 9.4 points per game and 12 rebounds per game. Now, to me, the answer is clearly Hayes. But I do think there is some interesting stuff here. Advanced numbers backed that up as well. He jumped up to 3.1 win shares in the playoffs. Unseld was the next closest at 2.0. Hayes played great throughout the playoffs, including a finals average of 20.7 points per game, 11.9 rebounds per game over the 7-game series. But, just one more wrinkle to this. In Game 7, Elvin Hayes was not that good. He was good. He wasn't great. He only had 12 points and 8 rebounds. He battled foul trouble throughout, and I think he fouled out of that game.
Yeah.
Wes Unseld, though, stepped up big. He had 15 points and 9 rebounds, and Bob Dandridge had 19 points. With that said, I'm still going to give it to Elvin Hayes. I think the regular season numbers were too good. The postseason numbers were too good. Wes Unseld is right there, and Wes Unseld obviously had a legacy with that franchise, but Elvin Hayes did as well. So I am going to go with Elvin Hayes. I think, to me, he's a pretty clear pick for this one. But I think Unseld made it interesting, and Dandridge should not be ignored as well. He was right in the mix all year.
Yeah, and Dandridge did help put them over the top finally. They were a team that was gunning for a championship for a while, was a contender year, didn't quite make it, and Dandridge kind of helped put them over the top, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I think he was more of a complement to those pieces rather than the go-to star, although he did certainly, have some key shots in big moments. Yeah, I would agree with Hayes, and I think if you look at box score plus minus, Unseld carries it strong in the regular season. 2.9 to only 1.1 for Dandridge and 0.6 for Hayes. But playoff time, Hayes really steps up there. 4.1 box for plus minus, 3.6 for unsold. And if you look at the minutes that Hayes is carrying, playoff minutes, 868 for unsold, only 677. I do think that matters, especially in the playoffs, to just be able to stay on the court, to be able to carry the load, especially when you're counted on to be the go-to scorer, to be the primary guy. Hayes was also an excellent defender. I mean, obviously Unseld was great at that, great at passing, great at rebounding. But, Hayes was, he put up a lot of numbers, and his shooting efficiency was never that great, but he was more than just, putting up box score numbers. He was contributing to winning. His teams won for the vast majority of his career. So I would give it to Hayes too. I see the arguments for Unseld. I see a little bit for Dandridge, but definitely I would say overall I think it has to go to Hayes.
Yeah, you might like narrative-wise, or at the time people might think this is Unseld because Unseld had been with the franchise since 1968 or whatever, when they were in Baltimore and had lived through all the Baltimore years, had lived through the Capital Bullets years and some of the later Bullets years. But the fact that Hayes, he had been there for a few years as well, so it wasn't like he was a complete stranger to that franchise. To me, it's just, Hayes, like you said, just big numbers, big minutes played, affected both ends of the court. To me, he was the pretty clear case. But I thought Unseld made an interesting, compelling argument on his end too.
Yeah, absolutely. He was kind of player who had, tremendous value without scoring. And there's a relatively short list of players, who can make that case in NBA history, who could be, the best player, close to the best player on their franchise, on a championship level team. And he's, one of the few guys that can definitely make that case.
Yeah.
So. All right. Next, we have the 1979 Supersonics. This is another well-balanced, no superstars team. In fact, no 1979 Sonic made an all-NBA team, which is kind of wild. They'd been the runner-up for the championship before, so they hadn't come out of nowhere. They had the second best record in the league that year. So, it's kind of hard to believe that, you could not fit Gus Williams or Dennis Johnson on the second team over, Phil Ford or World Be Free. It seems a little bizarre. But looking at the case for the three best players in the team, which would be Gus Williams, Jack Sikma, Dennis Johnson. Gus Williams, who was their point guard, 19.2 points per game, 4 assists, 2.1 steals per game. So, solid numbers, not spectacular, not superstar level, but led the team in PER, led in win shares per 48, led in box score plus minus 4.9, which is way ahead of anybody else on the team in that metric. So that's a strong case for him, and played even better in the playoffs. I would say superstar level production, 26.7 points per game. So way up there. 6.7 box score plus minus, which is also, led the team. And I think led the team by a fairly significant margin. So strong case for him, but let's go to the other players. Jack Sikma, 15.6 points per game, 12.4 rebounds, 3.2 assists, good passing for a big man. His numbers definitely did dip in the playoffs, which actually I think was a fairly consistent pattern for him in his career. And then Dennis Johnson, 15.9 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.3 steals, 1.2 blocks per game, the high level of blocks for a guard for his team. So definitely, I think, was more of a do-it-all than Gus Williams was. His numbers did go up in the playoffs, especially the box score plus minus went from 1.5 to 3.8. So still, behind Williams significantly, but definitely went up. He was first team all defense. He was the 1979 finals MVP, which, certainly, says something. If you look at the numbers for Johnson, it was 22.6 points per game on about 20 shots per game, 6 rebounds per game, which is pretty high, 6 assists per game, 1.8 steals per game, 2.2 blocks per game. So still doing everything. That scoring went up, especially in the finals. Williams, 29 points per game on 23 shots, 3.6 assists, 3.6 rebounds, 1 steal per game. So also really good. Sikma, rebounding was good, 14.8, 3.2 blocks per game. That was good. 15 points per game on 14 shots. So efficiency wasn't there. It would be really interesting to see what the voting breakdown for this finals MVP was, and if Sikma frankly had any support. Yeah, I would say it's pretty much a toss-up between Johnson and Williams. I would say, probably DJ was the right choice, especially factoring in defense. I do wonder, because the previous Game 7 of the finals, Dennis Johnson went 0 for 14.
Did not go well.
Right.
Did not go well for DJ.
Yeah. And I wonder if there was any in the voters' minds, and this is still players voting. I believe they voted in the finals MVP. I know they voted in the regular season MVP. Actually, it was probably more likely to be, because getting all the players to vote wouldn't make sense. It must have actually been media now that I'm thinking about it. But it'd be interesting to see if that, bounce back, redemption narrative had anything to do with, getting the finals MVP in 79. Anyway, in any case, I'm going with the Wizard here. Gus Williams, Sonic's best player. Overall impact seemed a bit bigger than the other two. DJ, I think, that the fact that he, was a more complete player and first team all defense and did actually win that finals MVP gives him somewhat of a boost. But I think Williams' numbers were just superior, both in the playoffs and in the regular season. I think he's the pick.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, DJ would have been a fun pick here, but I don't think he wasn't the best. I mean, maybe he won finals MVP, like you said. There was a lot of reasons why he did that, and the numbers are still very good for DJ. Don't get me wrong, the numbers are very, very good. But man, Gus did awesome stuff in the playoffs, awesome stuff in the regular season. He's not a jump off the page guy, he isn't the guy that you definitely rough the top of your head. You're like, oh, it's got to be good, But I think you did a good case there. I think it's Gus Williams.
Well, thanks, Rich.
All right, so let's move to the Los Angeles Lakers of 1980 and 1985. So we did some other ones here. We obviously, if you were listening earlier, Magic Johnson, you voted him for 1982, 87, and 88. But these ones are a little up for debate. So 1980, obviously the subject of Winning Time right now on HBO. So a lot of people know about this team that maybe did not know about it before. But, that team, I think, is pretty clearly led by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar during the regular season. There's some things that do happen in the playoffs that might make it a little interesting for Magic Johnson. But let's lay out the case here. So Kareem Abdul-Jabbar during the regular season, 24.8 points per game, 10.8 rebounds per game, 3.4 blocks per game. Let's also give some love to Jamal Wilkes as well. 20 points per game on this team. 20-year-old Magic Johnson, though, he is in the mix as well. He jumps right out of the gates and goes to 18 points per game, 7.7 assists per game. Now, win shares tell a very similar tale as well. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is an absurd 14.8 win shares to lead the team. That is good. That is a very good number, in case you're playing along at home. But these other guys have great numbers, too. Magic Johnson is at 10.5, and Jamal Wilkes is at 10. Now, where things get really interesting are the playoffs. Now, Kareem's playoff numbers are absurdly great in 1980. 31.9 points per game, 12.1 rebounds per game, shooting 57.2% from the field, 3.1 assists per game, and 3.9 blocks per game. Now, Magic shows up to play as well. He raises the scoring average to 18.3 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game. There's obviously the optics of him coming in to play center in the final game, yada, 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 that sort of stuff. But advanced stats-wise, it gets real close. Kareem is at 3.3 win shares. Magic is just below him at 2.8. To me, the answer has to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with all the stuff that he has. But Magic, I think, does make it a little bit interesting in his rookie year, which I think is something to be said. That Magic, that early into his career, is already, right there, neck and neck with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as far as being the best player on a championship team. I just wanted to point that out and talk about it. But to me, the answer has to be Kareem. When you average 31.9 points per game and 12.1 rebounds per game in the playoffs, it's Kareem. It's Kareem right now. But
yeah. No, I agree. That's hard to argue with. I was looking at this season and some of the other things, and I found it interesting that Magic did not get an MVP vote this season, which Kareem was clearly the best player on the team and in the league. But I found it interesting that he did not get one. I mean, Dan Roundfeld got a MVP vote. I mean, it's just sort of just not a random one. I found that pretty interesting. He actually didn't even make either All-NBA team, which a little bit surprising. But actually, Dennis Johnson and Gus Williams both got their due. They got on the second team.
They had to make up for it. They're like, yeah, sorry, hit the press.
Everybody's a year behind on that. So yeah, exactly. So So
which is crazy because now that we know Matt, in hindsight, it's like, here's Magic Johnson. He's immediately great. He immediately led the Lakers to the championship. Magic Johnson's the greatest player ever. You know what I mean? Right out of the gates. The way if you watched a video about this season, it's, Magic tips off. He does some crazy pass. He starts the finals game, and then he, jumps up, and I forget who's smacking his ass. Someone's smacking someone's ass. I forget who it is.
Right.
He jumps in someone's arm, and someone smacks someone's ass. And, that's what the clip would be. It would be that, and you'd be like, wow, Magic Johnson's immediately great at basketball, and the Lakers are here forever. But, it's interesting that he doesn't get that due in terms of like the awards and stuff, which is kind of weird. But
yeah, and the rookie of the year is blowout. I mean, Bird just destroys him. I think Magic got 3 votes and Bird got something like 60 votes. So, and Bird, the Celtics had won like 30 more games than they had the previous year. They had improved a lot more than the Lakers improved, who are already a pretty good team. So, it's not, it makes sense, but it does kind of counter the. It took longer for Magic to be accepted as like MVP, one of the best players in the game that I think we tend to accept. Obviously, the play in winning the Finals MVP, the huge game he had in Game 6 certainly added to that, but that wasn't immediately like, oh yeah, Magic is the best player. He went through some turmoil. He went through those tragic Johnson years in '84 series. It wasn't really until the mid '80s that it was more accepted that like, oh yeah, he is clearly like one of the best MVP level players, in this league, one of the 2 or 3 best players in the league. So
let's get to 1985 now, because this is an interesting one here. By this point, Kareem is 37 and starting to slow down. Now, to be fair, starting to slow down for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is 22 points per game, 7.9 rebounds per game, which is not bad for a 37-year-old who's been playing for like multiple decades at this point. But Magic is pretty great, though, too. He's averaging 18.3 points per game, dishing out 12.6 assists per game, grabbing 6.2 rebounds per game. Magic is beating Kareem in win shares in the regular season, 12.7 to 11.2. It's closer than you may think, but Magic does have a clear edge there. Playoffs are much of the same. Magic is at 3.0. Kareem is at 2.5 in terms of win shares. James Worthy slides in at second at 2.6. Playoff scoring is interesting, though, because Kareem is at 21.9, so right where he was in the regular season pretty much. Worthy steps up huge. He goes to 21.5, and Magic drops ever so slightly at 17.5. Where it does change, though, is Magic dishes out 15.2 assists per game in the playoffs and ups his rebounding to 7.1. So, yeah, when you get 17.5 points per game, 15.2 assists per game, and 7.1 rebounds per game, I think it's probably got to be you at this point. So I think it's Magic, but I think it's a lot closer than you might think between a 25-year-old, absolutely in his prime Magic, and a 37-year-old kind of aging Kareem. I think Kareem does make it a very, very close, race. Kareem does win the Finals MVP this year, but to me, I think to me it's Magic. What do you think? Do you have any arguments with that?
No, I don't. I do think it's very close, as you mentioned. There really is, not a huge amount of separation between the two. I mean, I agree with basically everything that you said. In terms of that, yeah, if you look at like boxer plus minus, Magic in the playoffs is like 6.6, Kareem's like 5.4, which is really strong, especially for 37. All the other numbers, the scoring, the advanced stats, the shooting, the true shooting percentage, they're like 0.003 percentage points away from each other. I mean, all their numbers are extremely close, but I think absent like any counter evidence, if Kareem had like just totally like had like the best playoffs ever and Magic was just like kind of normal, I might be tempted to give it to Kareem here. But given everything else, given the way Magic was playing, he's probably the best player in the game at this point, or between him and Bird, 1 and 2. You got to give to Magic, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, now speaking of Bird, we're going to go to 1981. So, yeah, I would have expected this to be Larry Bird in a landslide. It would, traditionally, obviously, Bird is seen as the best player on the team. I think he finished second in MVP voting that year, just behind Julius Erving. Was first team All NBA. Obviously seen as and was the clear star of the team. However, regular season, Robert Parish makes a way better case than I would have expected. So, you look at Larry Bird, his numbers, 21 points per game. Parish, 18.9 points per game. So close there. True shooting percentage, Bird, 53%, which is fine. Parish, 58%, which is really good. 10.9 rebounds for Bird, 9.5 rebounds for Parish, 5.5 assists, which is better than Parish's, 2.6 blocks for Parish, 2.0 steals for Bird, 19.9 PER for Bird, which is really good, but not superstar level. 25.2 PER for Robert Parish, which is just
come on, Chief. Let's get some respect on Robert Parish, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of thinks of him as like I think everybody thinks of Robert Parish as like the late 80s Robert Parish, where at that point he's just kind of a guy, you know what I mean? Like he's still capable of doing a lot of stuff.
He's still really good, but
yeah, he's still really good, but he's not like He's not 25.2 PER, Robert Parish. I mean, that is awesome.
Right.
Go, Robert.
Which was a career high. And yeah, the next season he had 22.6, 23, and then it was basically in the 20s. He had a bounce back year in 89 at 35 still, so he was going strong pretty well actually into the early 90s, better than you might expect. But anyway, so yeah, that's obviously a lot higher. 5.4 box score plus minus, which is better than Bird 4.3. So you might think, yeah, all right. Yeah, you could talk me into Parish. But playoffs wise, yeah, Bird's scoring 21.9 points per game. Parish is only 15. Bird is a bit more efficient. Bird has 14 rebounds to 8.6. And the advanced metrics 21.8 PER. Parish is down to 18.9. Boxer plus minus 7.7 to 2.3. So Parish was actually fourth on the team. He was behind Kevin McHale as well and Cedric Maxwell. Cedric Maxwell, by the way, like he won the Finals MVP and he played well. He was a really efficient scorer. 60 points per game on 64 true shooting, which is really huge. Don't know if I would have put him over Bird honestly there, but I mean it's not like So looking at the Finals MVP, 17.7 points per game on 56 field goal percentage, 9.5 rebounds to Bird, 15.3 points per game. So it was higher there. The scoring efficiency was a lot better. Bird only shot 42% from the field. Of course, he's doing a lot more. 15.3 rebounds. So Bird averaged 15 points and 15 rebounds in the Finals, which is pretty incredible. 7 assists per game, 2.3 steals. So I had to give it to Bird. Definitely going to give Bird the best player on this team. I mean, you look at obviously the track records there, the fact that he played so much better in the playoffs, and the fact that also, again, he played a much larger burden in terms of minutes. He played 39.5 minutes per game versus Parish only having 28 minutes per game. So that definitely swings this to him. But yeah, I was surprised to see the numbers be so strong for Parish and Birds to be down a little bit from what I would have expected this year. But he definitely would, really put superstar level production up, pretty soon after this.
Yeah. It's similar to what we were talking about with Magic, where you just kind of assume that right out of the gates, he's ready to go and he's already like the clear number one guy on that team. And that's, not exactly the case. He would very soon thereafter be the number one guy. And at this point, he probably is the number one guy. But yeah, it is a little bit more of an argument than
yeah, not quite undisputed number one.
Right.
He is number one, but he's not quite like the go-to for everything. Like absolutely.
Right. Exactly. Or that like a Finals MVP can be won by Cedric Maxwell without it just being immediately given to Bird. And like Bird had good numbers. Okay, cool. Bird, you obviously get it instead of, Right. So interesting stuff there. But all right, we'll move on to the 1983 Philadelphia 76ers, a very important team in NBA history. And this one, it's a two-horse race here. Sorry, Bobby Jones. You're not near Andrew Toney. No. I apologize, but you're not in the mix here.
No baloney? No?
No. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, baloney. Right. Yeah, no baloney, Tony.
Yeah.
But
right. Fair enough.
This is between Moses Malone and Julius, Dr. J. Erving here, but probably Moses. But I think Doc has a pretty good pace. So we're going to talk about Dr. J and Moses here. It's very hard to pick against Moses Malone because he here, has an all-time great season. A cool 24.5 points per game, 15.3 rebounds per game, shooting 50% from the field for 15.1 win shares. Not bad. That's why he won the MVP. That's why he won the MVP the year prior. Back-to-back MVPs with two different teams. That's not bad. That's pretty good. Julius Erving, though, is solid as hell. 21.4 points per game and 10.9 win shares. Surprisingly, though, the playoffs don't help Erving as much as you might think. He actually falls a bit to 18.4 points per game, 7.6 rebounds per game, and 1.2 win shares. Moses dominates win shares, 2.8 win shares for him, and then even more so, 26 points per game, 15.8 rebounds per game, including 10.5 defensive rebounds per game. So if you took out every single offensive rebound that Moses Malone had, that man still averages a double-double in the playoffs with just defensive rebounds. That is pretty good. So Julius has a great year, instrumental in this team winning the title, but it's Moses Malone. There's a reason why he won back-to-back MVPs. There's a reason why he had the momentum going in. There's a reason, again, he joins Philadelphia and immediately says, hey, we're going to win the title, and we're going to beat everybody. You know what I mean? We're not going to lose them an entire game. We're going to win every game. We're going to win the title. And they didn't win every game, but they won the damn title. So, yeah, to me, the optics of Moses coming to town, them winning, that's nothing against Dr. J. It's Julius Erving, but he won this thing. And just to give you an idea of just how well regarded this season was, he got 69 first place votes. Larry Bird got 1, Magic got 2. So Julius did finish 5th in MVP voting, so put some respect on him. But as you can see there, 5th is got some votes. When Moses takes home almost all of the first place votes and is a landslide winner for MVP, he's definitely the guy here.
Sure. Yeah. Julius, the one that kind of case that I brought up is that he did box score plus minus in the regular season, 6.5 to Moses' 3.7. Now, box score plus minus has never really liked Moses for whatever reason, and all the other stats obviously tilt in Moses' favor. If Doc had been better in the playoffs, I would have maybe seen a stronger case for him. But as you mentioned, his numbers dipped in the playoffs. Everything definitely pointed to Moses in the playoffs. I mean, he had a great regular season, but even better playoff run. Just kicked ass in every way. So definitely the catalyst for that team. Obviously, Doc was important. He's one of the great players of all time, and still was was older, but was still extremely important, extremely effective, and great player. But it was definitely Moses.
All right.
So less controversial than I thought it would be so far. But we got
we got some juice coming. I think.
We got some controversy. Everybody favorite controversial team, the Bad Boy Pistons, 1989 and 1990. So we'll start with 89, obviously, and you look at it, neck and neck, Bill Laimbeer, Dennis Rodman, Joe Dumars, Isaiah Thomas, all really productive. You look at their numbers, they're all within a few percentage points of each other in PER. Obviously, all had different skills that we'll kind of get into, all different roles, but all contributing on a high level. Which really was a team effort. Another no superstar, and actually no 1989 Piston won an all league award, which is kind of shocking because they made the finals the year before.
Yeah, helps the rep, though. It definitely helps the rep. I mean, Chuck Daly loved that. Chuck Daly was probably calling people saying, do not vote any of my guys, because then he could, come with a newspaper the next day and go, look at these assholes. Nobody thinks you guys belong. You know what I mean?
I was thinking, for whatever reason, I was thinking, they were down a bit in the regular season. Yeah, no, they won 63 games.
They were very good,
That was not the reason.
Probably because they were all gigantic douchebags and nobody liked them. That probably played a part in it.
I will agree with that. But honestly, what I think honestly probably had a lot to do with it? I think it was what Dumars and Isaiah Thomas said about Larry Bird. Or not Dumars, but Rodman saying that Larry Bird was overrated because he was white. And Isaiah was like, I think it's probably true. Which, by the way, totally valid, totally true, totally absolutely. Larry Bird got different treatment because he was white versus versus the rest of the league. Which, by the way, could you imagine how insufferable it would be today if there were a white player who was as good as Larry Bird today? Like if every conversation you have to have with your uncle at Thanksgiving's about Larry fucking Bird and he's this guy.
Well, that is coming in a few days when Chet Holmgren leads the Orlando Magic to multiple NBA championships.
All right. I mean, luckily
here first, I've correctly predicted his success as well as the team that's going to draft him. So get used to it. So tell your uncle to watch the NBA draft because there is the new Great White Hope has arrived, and there you go. His name is Chet.
I mean, luckily with Jokic, the xenophobia is still more powerful.
Right, where nobody can say his name. A lot of people.
So people are, so white racists can't be like, what about, Jokic? He's the best player in the league, So I do think there are a few people in our community who are a little bit too enthusiastic about Jokic sometimes. But anyway, that's an aside. Yeah.
That's for another show.
That's for another show. So, yes. So looking at the case for the 89 Pistons. So Joe Dumars won the finals MVP, all defensive first team. Isaiah Thomas, he had the best box score plus minus and PR of the team in the playoffs, led the team in points per game and assists per game. Only knock on his would probably be just the shooting efficiency was not there, especially compared to Dumars. Now he was asked to do more than Dumars was, but they played similar roles. They played roughly, same number of minutes per game. We're taking similar number of shots. It wasn't like, Dumars didn't carry, a heavy load. He definitely did. Bill Laimbeer, he led the team in box score plus minus and win shares in the regular season. Obviously, they're lead big man, great defender. They're all pretty much real great defenders. And then Rodman, first team all defense. He was important, obviously, but yeah, he was, coming off the bench to score. He only averaged 27 minutes per game in the playoffs and played even fewer in the postseason. He actually kind of struggled in the postseason. So, Rodman doesn't really have a strong argument here. So really, I would say toss up between Dumars and Thomas, really depending on how much you value Dumars' D and his better efficiency. I'm going to agree with the finals MVP voters in this case. Go with Joe Dumars, but extremely close. I can see why people might go with Isaiah in this case too. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a tough one. And it seems to be a Pistons thing because we're going to have very similar arguments when we get to 2004. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's a tough one. I think I'm with Dumars as well. I think he's, the defense plays a big part. Because you're really going to have to start, these guys are all very, very close. They're all contributing their all different ways, and the scoring is all pretty much the same or very similar. Dumars does step up come finals time, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there's a wrong pick between Dumars or Isaiah. I think you could pick either of those two and be okay. I'm with you on Dumars, I think, but I could definitely be swayed on Isaiah. I feel like this is a tough one. This is our first total coin flip one where if you came on here and did the exact opposite argument for Isaiah, I'd probably be like, yeah, that sounds great. Isaiah is definitely the one. I don't know. This is really too close to call, man. This is tough.
Yeah, I would say a 90 is similar, but I think it's clearer. So Isaiah wins the finals MVP. By far, he has the best box score plus minus and PER in the playoffs. Dumars is again all defensive first team and also all NBA third team. Rodman again is all defensive first team. He's still playing 29 minutes per game, so he's not quite playing quite heavier minutes yet that I think he would later in the 90s. And Laimbeer again leading the team in win shares, but honestly, I don't see him as a serious candidate. So yeah, but I mean, Thomas in the postseason, he has 7.6 box score plus minus, which is superstar level, 21 PER. He's averaging 20.5 points per game, 8.2 assists, 5.5 rebounds, which for a guard his size, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's kind of doing everywhere. 56 true shooting, which is obviously pretty strong, especially for him. He wasn't normally that efficient for a lot of seasons of his career, which is kind of the knock. The year before, he had 5.01 true shooting. So definitely, yeah, I think based on the strength of playoff run, based on the reputation, based on the fact that, it's so close between the two of them. And, and obviously Rodman and Laimbeer have at least somewhat of a case, although not a particularly strong one. Got to go with Isaiah here.
Yeah. No love for the microwave, though. And, man.
No, Vinny Johnson. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No,
I'm sorry.
I mean, I like the microwave, but
if you were the oven, maybe, but the microwave.
It was the convection oven.
Maybe. Maybe you got to play long enough to be. If you're only going to play the microwave, you're not going to play oven minutes. Then I'm just not going to consider you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Hit the bricks, Vinny.
Yeah,
there you go. So then, we're going to jump ahead many, many years because obviously you talked about this before. The 90s are pretty locked in. Michael Jordan, I think, pretty clearly the dude for the Bulls. Hot take there, but Michael Jordan, probably the best guy on the Chicago Bulls in the 90s.
Probably.
I think that's the case. Yeah, Hakeem Olajuwon, very clearly the top dude on the Houston Rockets as well. Right. So that takes up the whole 90s. So then we jump all the way up to the last year of the 90s to 1999 with a very interesting year here with the San Antonio Spurs. And this one is not going to be easy. These guys were razor thin throughout the year. The easy answer is to go with Duncan, and narrative-wise, it definitely works. He comes onto the team a year earlier, clearly is ready for the NBA right off the bat, and the team could, obviously had never been able to get over the hump after years and years and years of being good. And it's not just Robinson. We've talked about this before on this show. The Spurs have been a great franchise for, as long as they've been around. They've basically been a solid as hell team. Once Robinson gets there, they're a very, very solid team. They just can't get over the hump. They can't make it to the finals. They can't win a title. Duncan comes, they win the title. They make it over the hump. They get there. So narrative-wise, you're thinking, well, the difference maker is Duncan. And you're not wrong. It is, but I do think that Robinson does have a very compelling case. In the regular season, now this is lockout shortened, of course, from the 99 lockout. Duncan averages 21.7 points per game, 11.4 rebounds per game, and 2.5 blocks per game for 8.7 win shares. Robinson is right there with him, though. 15.8 points per game, obviously lower in the scoring. 10 rebounds per game, lower in the rebounding. 2.4 blocks per game, right there. But thanks to his well-rounded game, great defense, all that sort of stuff, he's not far off in terms of win shares. He's at 8.4 to Duncan's 8.7. Now, if you're thinking, hey, well, the playoffs are going to luckily split this up. Well, no, not at all, because Duncan leads the team in points and rebounds, 23.2 points and 11.5 rebounds, has a team-high 3.7 win shares. But Robinson, though, is really good as well, 15.6 points per game, 9.9 rebounds per game, and again, right there, very close in win shares at 3.0. So I think it's Duncan, optics, narrative, on-court play, I think it's Duncan. Robinson does make it interesting. And there's part of me that wants to give it to Robinson as kind of a lifetime achievement award, if you want to call it that or whatever. But to me, I think at this point, and especially during this year, it became clear, okay, Duncan's going to lead this team like for the next couple decades now. Like, this is the dude, this is the guy, and this was definitely the year that I think he passed him. So I'm going to go with Duncan here, but it was very, very close. I think it's Duncan.
Yeah, to me, it's almost a little bit similar to what we talked about with the 56 Warriors, talking about Neil Johnston and Paul Arizin. It was just like, yeah, Neil Johnston year after year just put up huge numbers, was insanely productive, was carrying the team, but the team sort of, they won some years and they didn't win other years. Now, the Spurs won most years. The year they didn't win was with Robinson, but they never got above a certain level. I think Duncan was that guy who elevated them. And I think based on that, the fact that, all the numbers are really close, I would go with Duncan as well, kind of just without any other compelling evidence ahead of us. I think you have to go with Duncan just based on, what else he accomplished in his career and the fact that, his presence meant leading the team. He also, he had 733 playoff minutes. David Robinson only had 600.
Right. Yeah, he carried the big load, scored the most points. It's Duncan. Yeah, and like maybe at the beginning of the year you would have said, hey, if the Spurs win the title, it's definitely be because of David Robinson. But by the end of the year, you were like, oh yeah, this Duncan guy's like fucking incredible. Right. And this guy's probably going to be the best player in the league for many, many years moving forward. And then he was. He didn't do it with the Orlando Magic, though. Remember when he was about to leave San Antonio to join the Orlando Magic?
Yeah.
So much.
Well, the Magic are going to get that white guy, so that's going to be good.
Chet Holmgren. So it's good. They'll make up for it. Come on, put some respect on Chet's name here. Come on.
I'm glad that the white savior of the NBA's name is Chet. Somehow that's
perfect, right? Isn't it perfect?
Yeah.
It'd be better if it was like Caden or something like that.
Right. There are more Chets than you would have expected.
Is that true? Okay.
Well, we got Chet Walker, obviously. We got.
You're making fun of Chet, one of the all-time coolest dudes in the world is
named
Chet.
I'm not trying to. I'm not saying all Chets. This is not all Chets. This is
leave Chets alone.
I'm sorry. So we got Chet Carlisle, who played 51 games in the 1947 season. So we have. Let's see, who are the other Chets? So we got Chet Albuchin, who played 1947 as well, and Chet McNabb. We got three other Chets who are listed who don't have a season. Okay, we got Chet Forte. He was drafted by the Royals, but never played in the league. Okay, that's interesting. And we got a couple other Chets anyway. I don't want to over Chet this year, but this is interesting stuff. Perhaps the Chet episode is in our future. You never know.
Yeah, Chet. Yeah, we'll talk them all. It's going to be quick because I don't have a ton of Chet Forte fun facts, but we'll find them.
Yeah.
So Chet I want to learn more about Chet
Absolutely. I would say the best Chet other than Chet Walker would be Steve Buscemi Chet from Barton Fink.
What about Chet Steadman from Rookie of the Year, the hit 90s baseball movie? Do you remember that?
Oh, I had somehow forgotten about all of that. So yeah, it's just changing my thinking right now.
See, there's a lot of Chet stuff we could do. Chet Steadman.
All right.
Gary Busey's finest work.
Absolutely. All right. Back to basketball. 2001 Lakers. So we mentioned earlier, 2000, 2002, very clearly Shaq. Well, 2001, a little closer. So we kind of picked all of these, the ones that were worth discussion, debate, with mostly a cursory glance at Basketball Reference, or in some cases, obviously, we knew in depth, kind of that there would be an idea of a debate. Well, 2001, I kind of took a cursory glance. I was like, yeah, Kobe did play pretty well this year. Maybe there's a case. Well, looking at it more in depth, there's not all that much of a case. Kobe's pretty even with Shaq during the playoffs. That's, that was the kind of the one case. Like he had more win shares. They were exact the same in box score plus minus, pretty close in PER and other metrics. Scoring wise, Shaq averaged 30 points per game. Kobe averaged 29 points per game. So, those numbers all pretty good in the playoffs. Yeah, they were extremely close. If you want to just pick playoffs, Shaq averaged 30.4 points per game and 15.4 rebounds per game. So that's pretty hard to beat.
That's pretty good. Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah. So, and Shaq was clearly superior in the regular season. So, honestly, yeah, definitely. Shaq by a landslide. 0-2, I did dig into that slightly, even though it wasn't technically on our list. But yeah, Kobe was actually pretty even with Shaq in the regular season, but Shaq was clearly better in the playoffs. So there was no time where Kobe, contributed better than Shaq both in the playoffs and in the regular season, the same season. So you got to go with Shaq by default there. Even though, Kobe obviously was clearly the number 2 player there, clearly really important, hit big shots, all that good stuff. But yeah, Shaq for sure, all 3 years.
Yeah, he was the best player, and he was the engine that really made it all work. You know what I mean? Like
right,
all the everything that was great about that team in that time. A lot of it was, you needed Shaq to be that.
And Kobe was. He made them great too. They both were very important. Yeah, but don't yell at us, Kobe stands. But
the best player was Shaq at that time. It's fine, and that's fine to admit. Like, and that's what made them so dominant. And when Kobe got great, then they became like unbeatable, and that's when they were unbeatable for like 3 straight years, because it was like, oh, Kobe's great too. Oh, and Shaq's already great. Well, this is not going to go well for anybody, and it didn't. Absolutely. It didn't go well for anybody. They beat everybody, pretty easily. So. Yeah, sorry, Aaron Williams-led New Jersey Nets. You're not going to win much, because these guys are going to destroy you. Sorry, Aaron McKee.
Listen, I think Aaron Williams. I think the narrative's going to turn eventually on Aaron Williams. I think we're going to see.
Fertile turn, eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Eventually,
eventually on him. But let's get to a team that was able to beat the Shaq and Kobe Lakers, because at this point they all hated each other a lot, and then Malone was there, and then they hated him too, and then Gary Payton was there, and he was kind of like, I don't really like any of you guys either, and they all hated each other, and then they lost. They had a really good season, but they still lost, and the Pistons beat them. So now this is the prototypical team that most people bring up as far as like an even, well-rounded team without a superstar that won a title. When any team and their franchise think, hey, maybe we'll win a title, and somebody goes, yeah, but like you don't have any stars. Like, no, but the Pistons won a title. It's like, okay, well, your team's not good though. Like, this team was really, like everybody brings up the one example. Well, what about the Pistons? It's like, okay, well, if you can recreate what the Pistons did, which again is not that they had like no good players, is that they had a bunch of good players, but not one guy that very clearly jumps off the page here. But we're gonna try to come up with the official person that was the best player on the 2004 Pistons. So let's try it here. Statistically, goddamn it, they're all really close again. Okay, they're very well rounded. Now one player clearly emerges as far away the best player on the team, which sucks. So in the regular season, Rashid was great, but he only played 21 games. Now, do we strike that against him? Does that help his case? Does it help his case that once he got to the team, it felt like they were really primed and ready for this run? They weren't a bad team before this. They had made Eastern Conference Finals. They had made good runs, but like, he comes to the team and immediately it feels like, oh, well, now these are real dudes. Now this is a real team. Does that help his case or not? We'll get to that in a second, I guess. I mean, I maybe off the top of your head, Jason, do you think that kind of helps Rashid's case? Because, like, yeah, he only played 21 games, but those are very impactful 21 games.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't count it against him because, I mean, and I think there is a case that it helps his case because, they did turn, they were good already, but they turned into a different team with him and improved with him, and he completed them. The issue that you allude to is, in the playoffs, I mean, he was fine, but didn't really pan out. He was definitely not the best player on the team in the playoffs. So that hurts his case, I think.
All right, so we I agree. Sucks. We got that. All right. So.
Right, exactly. Yes. Exactly. So.
I think very clearly you're saying, no, yeah, he's. It's actually interesting because I always kind of thought Sheed was like awesome in the playoffs for that team, and he really was. We'll talk about it in a bit. He really wasn't that great, but big part of the regular season, big part of them turning around and really feeling like, okay, this is a real team that can make a run here. Chauncey Billups, clearly the best Piston through the regular season. To me, 16.9 points per game, 11.3 win shares. That's the best on the team because everybody else is pretty close too. Big Man Wallace, of course, the engine that made everything go really on the defensive end, gave that team their identity, gave everybody, it really kind of got the Pistons to the level that where they got to is when they added Big Ben and he started to kind of figure out what his game was. That's when things really start going. 9.5 points per game at 12.4 rebounds per game, 3 blocks per game, 10.2 win shares. Now, Rip Hamilton was very good, but not enough to unseat either Billups or Wallace, I don't think, at 17.6 points per game, 8.1 win shares. Now, the playoffs, will they help us come to a conclusion? Well, not really. So again, narrative-wise, Rasheed was the difference maker coming over midseason, propelling the team from the Eastern Conference kind of cute story to a bona fide championship contender and a championship winner. But he struggled in the playoffs. He scored only 13 points per game on 41.3% shooting. Billups, he averaged 16.4 points per game and 5.9 assists per game and a team-high 3.7 win shares. He shot 38.5% from the field. So, mid-2000s basketball, everybody, back when basketball was played by real men, right. And they missed a lot of shots because Chauncey Billups, under 40% for the playoffs, but still good numbers.
But Rich, they didn't miss a lot of threes, and that's the important
right, they made all
They missed a lot of mid-range. They missed a lot of they didn't shoot a lot of threes, so they didn't miss a lot of threes, and they missed a lot of mid-range jumpers. Real men miss mid-range jumpers, not
exactly
threes.
Right. Instead of these 3-pointers, get out of here. Kids.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, I might be biased here because he's one of my favorite players growing up. We are going to ignore that he at one point played for my favorite basketball team and he was not good. We're just going to strike that from the record. I don't even remember that happened. Ben Wallace played for the Bulls. What are you talking about? That didn't happen. But he had a great playoffs here. He got his scoring up over 10, 10.3, 14.3 rebounds per game, 2.4 blocks per game. His win shares are super close to Billups at 3.6. Back score plus minus likes Wallace a lot better than Billups as well, 5.3 to 4.6. And let's get some love to Richard Hamilton, too. He was great in the playoffs. 21.5 points per game, 44.7% shooting for 3.5 win shares. Now,
do you acknowledge that he was on the Bulls or no?
Not really.
All right, fair enough.
I kind of forgot that until you mentioned it. I'm thinking, wait, oh, you're right, he was. Yes. Yeah. No, I do not. Okay, I just realized, no, I do not acknowledge that. Literally don't acknowledge. I remember that Ben Wallace's, but I choose to ignore it. When you mentioned it there, that is the first time since Rip Hamilton left the Bulls that I remember that Rip Hamilton was on the Bulls. But no, I do not acknowledge it or remember it. But he was great. This is tough. I think it's a toss-up between Billups and Big Ben. Sheed was obviously best in the regular season, but only played half of it. Not strong in the playoffs. I think Billups was very, very good. I think if you wanted to make a case for Billups, I could definitely listen to that. I think I'm going with Ben Wallace, though. I think just the identity of that team was so rooted in what Ben Wallace was doing. And so much of kind of his mentality and his force on the rebounding and his force on the defensive end. I think I go with Big Ben, but I think you can make an argument for Billups. I don't know. I'm kind of going to cop out on this. What do you think, Jason? It's too close to call for me.
Yeah, Billups was the Finals MVP. It's whatever. Yeah, I mean Hamilton was strong in the playoffs and probably their best playoff performer overall. I mean everything else is pretty close. Yeah, I think so. This is a little bit kind of close to the 78 bullet situation that we talked about where, Unseld does so much that doesn't necessarily show up in the box score. And plays a solid defense. He's a guy who doesn't score, but he does everything else so well. He defends, and that obviously that shows up in some of the numbers. I think that I would go with Wallace as well. I would be okay with Billups. I would even be okay. I'd even be okay with Sheed, I think. I don't think the numbers bear it out necessarily, but I do think that, there was some level of other impact there. But honestly, he also averaged like 13.7 points per game and 7 rebounds per game. Obviously, good numbers, and they were a little better in the playoffs, but it wasn't like he was like the superstar who came in. He was just like a really good, better than role player, but in terms of numbers wise, that was just he was just like the piece that was missing, but he wasn't like the superstar that came in and put everything on his back. Wasn't that kind of playoffs for him.
Yeah, like he may have done like you didn't show up in the box score, but he was like really, rallying the team back in the locker room and all that sort of stuff. And okay, that's fine. Like, whatever, change. But yeah, I think Ben Wallace has a lot of that too. I don't know.
Right, agreed.
It's tough to call. I think you could go with either Billups or Wallace. I am going to go with Wallace here, but I think either of those ones would be a compelling case. But as is this 2004 Pistons, they did as the reputation is, it is too close to call for this team. Just both guys great. So who knows? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to go with Ben Wallace, but yeah, none of us feel great about it. So
no.
You got any to debate that is welcome to throw it down on Twitter. Yeah, we'll defend our honor, or I will cop out on Rich in the first choice and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Rich, why did you say Big Ben? How dare you?
Yeah,
How dare you say Ben Wallace?
Of course it's Mehmet Okur.
Yes. Of course, it's Lindsey Hunter.
Tarvin Ham.
Do you acknowledge that Lindsey Hunter played for the Bulls?
I do remember Lindsey because he was like 400 pounds. And like, I remember Bulls fans were like, "Why is this guy on the team?" And they're like, "He's like a coach on the floor." And I'm like, "Well, then make him a coach on the bench and get a real player." Like, you know, like he's never on the floor because he's too fat to play.
Fun
and
times,
like, they're like, "Well, then he's a coach on the floor." And I'm like, "Make him a coach then."
All right, fair enough.
He was look up Lindsey Hunter Bulls. You'll see what I'm talking about. He's as big as a house.
Yeah.
He's
right.
massive. He had like a Udonis Haslam thing where he just didn't play, but I don't know. It wasn't
right.
I feel like I could believe that Udonis Haslam is helping the Heat. I had trouble believing that.
Didn't he coach the Suns and like got fired like really like soon into it? Like something weird happened with that. Yeah,
maybe. Yeah, I remember him getting coaching jobs, and then I don't know what the hell he's doing these days.
Like he was there for like one season, and it got really weird. And
in Phoenix, no way. Like,
I know. Yeah,
it got weird quickly in Phoenix. Yes, 2012-2013 season, he was 12-29, and they fired him.
Okay.
So there you go. And now he is currently, or he was, the Mississippi Valley State University head coach, but he is no longer that. He stepped down in March of 2022, so he's available to bring onto your team if you'd like. So
absolutely, yeah, I'm sure NBA staff's looking for him anyway. All right, so now we've got 2005 and 2007 Spurs. And we're going to look at Manu Ginobili here because we're going to look at all the Spurs, obviously. But 2005, looking at Duncan, Ginobili, and Tony Parker. Duncan, first team All-NBA, first team All-Defense, Finals MVP. Numbers are great. Leads the team in win shares, leads the team in PER, leads in box score plus minus. Leads in pretty much every stat that matters. But Ginobili's really close.
Yeah.
You look at win shares, 11.2 to just 11. Box score plus minus is close. He's contributing heavily. The minutes, I mean, Duncan's averaging 33 a game. Ginobili's averaging like 30. So that's close too. It's not like, Duncan's playing more, obviously, but it's not like so much more that you would be like, oh, yeah, Duncan's has so much more of a heavy load. Ginobili, continue.
No. I was just saying, yeah. I think Ginobili at this time, it's like I think it's probably still Duncan, and you're going to go through that here. But yeah, Ginobili was a very, very good player. There was like, I think people remember him like first coming in the league, and then maybe the later years. But there was a couple years where it was like, dude, this team is not good without Ginobili and Parker also being great as well. I mean, Duncan was still great, but he wasn't as great as he was in 2003. He kind of slowed down a little bit, but a lot of that was because these other two dudes emerged, and he didn't have to do as much. He was able to kind of say, "Hey, I got two other guys that can come off, one guy that can come off the bench," or at this time he's Ginobili's still starting, but like guys that can that just contribute almost of an equal level as me as well. So yeah, it was a lot closer than a lot of people think.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Ginobili was like, he didn't play like heavy minutes, but he was giving superstar level production, for the team, in less minutes than a superstar normally plays, but absolutely was contributing at a high level for, quite a few years. But yeah, so he led the Spurs in postseason win shares and box score plus minus by a lot, 9.2 to 5.5 for Duncan. The PR is basically identical. He steps up in the playoffs big. Duncan improves as well, but, and again, as we mentioned, basically nearly even with Duncan and all the major regular season metrics, advanced metrics. Parker negative 2.7 box score plus minus in the playoffs. So the playoffs not good for Parker, and not really. I mean, he was good, but not really on the level of the other two guys, to be honest. So I'm going to go with Ginobili here because of that postseason run. I think that's enough for me to be willing to vote him ahead of Duncan. I don't blame anybody for drawing the opposite opinion. It is strong. Obviously Duncan, is providing more defense. There's things that aren't being captured here that would favor Duncan. Obviously, Duncan's they're both Hall of Famers, but Duncan's like, no doubt, top 10, top 15 all-time player. And Ginobili's not at that level despite being great. So yeah, I don't feel like 100% good about it, but I'm going with Ginobili here.
Yeah, let's have some fun. Give Manu something. Yeah, give Manu one. Yeah, that great playoff. I mean, that playoff run was great. I mean, he steps up big time in those playoffs for the Spurs. So no, I don't mind that pick at all. I think Manu was great in the playoffs and enough to make a case for him for sure. So yeah, I'm down with it.
2007, Duncan, first team All-NBA again, first team All-Defense again. He does have the best, pretty much all the advanced stats in the metric in the playoffs favor him. Ginobili did have a better box score plus minus in the regular season. His numbers are very close to Duncan's there. So, it's close in both, but Duncan is definitely better in the playoffs this year. Parker wins the Finals MVP. I mean, his numbers are fine too, but they're definitely, again, a level below Ginobili and Duncan. I guess they got bored of giving it to Duncan, so they gave it to Parker, which, again, didn't merit. It was a 4-game sweep. So, I
don't know. What do you want us to say?
Whatever.
His series is kind of boring.
Yeah.
LeBron was here, but then he was gone real quick. And, Drew Gooden was the next best player. I don't know. Tony, just take it. Give it to Tony. Give it to Tony.
Right. Just give it to
Happen.
So, yeah. So I'm giving, again, absent a strong case for Ginobili in any of these, I'm going to give it to Duncan, obviously. So going to go with Tim here.
There we go. All right.
All right.
The 2008 Celtics, Jason, I don't know if you've heard, but this team won an NBA championship. The 2008 Celtics won the NBA championship this year. Okay. They had Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Rajon Rondo were on this team.
Right.
And they came together and won an NBA championship. Yeah.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they won like 4 or 5 others because of how much we talk about this era of the Celtics. Obviously, they won multiple championships.
Correct.
Dynasty, right?
I'm not going to look it up, but I think off the top of my head, they won the next 4 titles.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, right. And then the Mavs won in 2011. I forget. Yeah, that sounds about right. So
that sounds about right. Yeah, okay.
I'm not gonna look it up. I'm just gonna trust the old brain here that's exactly what happened. Yeah. So anyway, narrative-wise, this one is tough because Pierce was on the team for a decade at this point. There wasn't one guy that they added to become a champion, but rather they got both Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. And on the court, the big three are all pretty close. Kevin Garnett leads the team in win shares at 12.9 in the regular season, backed by 18.8 points per game, 9.2 rebounds per game. Paul Pierce just a hair below KG in win shares at 12.4 and leads the team in scoring at 19.6. Ray Allen trails both of them pretty significantly in win shares at 9.7. But his on-court numbers are great, 17.4 points per game, shooting nearly 40% from 3. Now, in the playoffs, Garnett steps up big time. He ups his scoring and rebounding, 20.4 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game. Leads the team in win shares at 4.1. Ray Allen slides into second in win shares at 3.1 with 15.6 points per game, and again, 40% from 3. And Paul Pierce, good numbers, a hair under Allen at 3.0 win shares with 19.7 points per game. So it's pretty close. But I think I'm pretty comfortable giving it to Kevin Garnett. I think, Pierce is right there, and Pierce is pretty close, but I think when you add in, again, Garnett comes to the team, and he's clearly the biggest piece to me of the acquisitions. Ray Allen was a great piece. Obviously, adding Ray Allen was great, but almost immediately you could tell Ray Allen would be the third most important guy on this team, pretty quickly thereafter, while Garnett would be the dude. I mean, Garnett is absolutely in his prime here at 31, coming off some great years in Minnesota. So, to me, it's him, and him stepping up as big as he did in the playoffs. That sort of works for me as well. So I am going to go with Kevin Garnett.
Yeah, I do think that, and we know that Garnett was the guy who was doing a lot of the little things, driving them there. That defensive improvement, was obviously the play and motivation of KG was a really important part of that. And you look at, the box score stats, the advanced stats, he's leading the way in most of them. I do think it's pretty clear. Obviously Pierce and Allen also played really well, but I do think that, I think it's clearly Kevin Garnett. Something looking into this team, I had actually forgotten that Tony Allen played for this team.
Yeah, totally, he had a weird Boston run. Do you remember there was the one year where they called a whistle and then he went to go dunk after the whistle and tore his ACL?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, because there was a long time where everybody was like, "This guy's a clown. What an idiot. What a dummy." And then it's so weird how his reputation became this is the smartest player on the floor. This is the veteran, Tony Allen. He's the best. He had a very weird boss. I would have assumed that, when you look at his numbers and look at how his career was going, that, Tony Allen would have been a guy that, just fell off the map. You'd never remember seeing him ever again. But then he ended up having, another decade in the league and ended up being, really good for a lot of good teams. So.
Yeah. Well, then he got in trouble for swindling.
That's right. He was one of those guys. Oh,
yeah,
man.
Right.
Man, there's a lot of fun guys that I used to like that are on that list, and it's oh man. Wasn't he one of the? I don't want to call him the ringleader, but I think he was pretty high up in the. Did anything ever come of that? What are we doing?
There's been some. I was looking that up actually. A couple of not Allen, but a couple of former players are pleading guilty, are getting Jamario Moon and Anthony Roten. So plea deals. Anyway, we'll see.
Yikes.
So,
all right.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was fun. Maybe not
Insurance fraud.
that idea. Yeah, I can't believe. Yeah, I completely forgot he was there. And he played there for like 5-6 years. It totally. Yeah. Anyway, 2009, 2010 Lakers. Kobe or Pau Gasol. Of course, Kobe. The Kobe Shaq year. Shaq leaves. The Lakers are in the wilderness for a couple years, but then, hey, they kind of rebuilt the team. They get Phil Jackson back, and, hey, they luck into a beneficial trade for Pau Gasol. They get another star, and things go well. They make the 2008 finals, and they win the 2009 and 2010 championship. So, I think reputation-wise, Kobe is definitely clearly seen as the better player. But, take a look at the numbers. Well, it's close. I'm still going to go with Kobe here. Pau did lead regular season win shares. Box score plus minus favors Kobe by a decent amount. Obviously Kobe's taking the scoring load. Kobe's the guy everyone's keying their defense for. Pau's important too, and he's a great player. Probably a little bit underrated. Even though he played for the Lakers, I still say in some respect I think his contributions were maybe not quite as appreciated, but yeah, I would say. And then for playoff performance, Kobe pretty much outshines Pau in everything. 9.1 box score plus minus to 5.3. All the numbers are up there. He has a brilliant playoffs in there. 2009. I think 2009 it's absolutely clearly Kobe.
Yeah.
2010 it's a little closer. Pau is he leads in win shares 11.0 to 9.4 in the regular season. Box score plus minus also 4.9 to 4.1. PER2. All the advanced numbers in the regular season favor Pau. But playoff time. I mean, Pau does win in win shares there. Kobe's gets in box score plus minus and some of the other numbers. But Kobe's also scoring 29 points per game in the playoffs. Over 23 games. He's carrying such a heavy burden for that team that it would have to really be like again a really clear case for me to pick Pau over Kobe either one of these years. And like I would say, I would say the numbers overall might even give Pau a slight edge, but just knowing what I know about what we saw when we were there. I mean, Pau was absolutely a really important contributor, but I think these were Kobe's teams.
Right. The reason that these teams won the title was because of Kobe Bryant. I mean,
Sure.
Having Pau there obviously changed everything, made it a lot easier for Kobe to win these titles. But yeah, having watched all these games and remember watching this in real time, this was Kobe. I mean, the box score plus minus and the win shares and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, because Kobe was Kobe, and he shot under 50%, 45% from the field in the playoffs. So some of those efficiency numbers are going to suffer, especially when Gasol was a very efficient player, and he always was in his entire career. He was very efficient about where he shot. He was very efficient about how he shot and where he got his points and all that sort of stuff. So those sort of numbers are going to look better. But I mean, Kobe averaged nearly 30 points a game in the 2010 playoffs, and yeah, Paul has win shares. Paul has some of the other stuff here and there, but these are Kobe's teams for sure. So yeah, I think there's interesting cases maybe, and it's not obvious. Like there might be people that would say, "Oh my God, it's so clearly Kobe." I don't think it very clearly is. I think there is at least an argument to be made for it, but it's not it's one that would be really tough. Like you said, Paul had to really, really clearly dominate, and I just don't think he does to take these away from Kobe. He's in the mix, but you got to be really, really great. You got to be all-time great to take these titles away from Kobe, I think.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that.
Now, this is a fun one. The 2014 San Antonio Spurs. So now it's probably Kawhi Leonard, but Duncan, still stout at this time, still pretty good. Manu Ginobili, not bad either. And this is kind of an interesting one. In with the benefit of hindsight, it's probably obvious and easy to say it's Kawhi Leonard. But at this time, we didn't quite know what he was going to become. Like we've kind of retconned this into him being the best and the most important guy on this team. But I think a lot of it is because we would then find out later in future years that, oh yeah, he is the best and the most important guy. And oh yeah, this guy is incredible. And oh yeah, he's going to lead this team to a title. And he's going to lead this team to a title. And he's going to do this sort of stuff. With that said, though, he does have a great case on stats and merit as well. So he leads the team in win shares during the regular season at 7.7 with 12.8 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, and his always insanely great defense, of course. Tim Duncan is no slouch at all, though, as he is starting to wind down his career here. He has 15.1 points per game, 9.7 rebounds per game, and he's just under Kawhi at 7.4 win shares as well. But hey, Did I say Manu? I meant Marco Bellinelli. What about my man Marco Bellinelli? 5.9 win shares. Put some respect on Marco Bellinelli's name. We're not going to bring up what he did in the playoffs. That's irrelevant to this discussion. Right. Just trust me. They were great, and he definitely belongs in this conversation at all. Now, but what I'm going to do is not mention him again, though. Just trust me that he belongs in the conversation, but I'm no longer going to include him in the conversation that I'm going to have. So,
all right. Sorry, I do have to interrupt, though. Do you recognize Marco Bellinelli as a Chicago Bull?
Yes. Oh, I always recognize Marco Bellinelli as a Chicago Bull. Yes. Don't worry.
All right. I appreciate that. All right.
Yeah, I have a connection to Marco Bellinelli that I'll always. Yeah, I do remember him as a Bull. And then there was one point where when I was in Italy, I was shopping, and there was it was like a small little store on the Amalfi Coast or whatever, and I went in and I bought a Sprite, and Marco Bellinelli was on the Sprite can.
Ooh.
And I walked up to the guy, and I'm like, yeah, Marco Bellinelli, thinking like, hey, Italian basketball player. And he looked at me, and he goes, who? And I said, Marco Bellinelli, this guy. And he goes, who? I was just like, all right, well, never mind. Apparently nobody knows who Marco Bellinelli is. That's fine. Like, if he was a member of Real Madrid, I'm sure he would know who he was or whatever.
Sure,
but, like, if he was on, a football team, he might know. But yeah, this man had no earthly idea who the fuck Marco Bellinelli was. Is it Marco Bellinelli? He plays basketball. And he goes, basketball. Yeah. He just kind of goes like that. I'm like, all right, that's fair enough. I bought that can, though, and I enjoyed that Marco Bellinelli was there. So, and then I shared it on Facebook, and Marco Bellinelli, then a member of the Chicago Bulls, said thank you. So, aka the person running his social media account said thank you. So, you know what?
There you go.
I always remember Marco Bellinelli as a Bull. So, okay. Let's never talk about Marco Bellinelli again in this conversation because he didn't do great in the playoffs. He did really bad. That's fine. He got him there in the regular season. Playoff-wise, Duncan performed slightly better with 3.2 win shares, 16.3 points per game, 9.2 rebounds per game. Kawhi is right there with him, though, at 2.9 win shares and 14.3 points per game. Manu Ginobili does step up playoff-wise. He averages 14.3 points per game, 2.2 win shares. Thiago Splitter somehow, some way, was third on the team in win shares in the playoffs. Wild to insane at 2.6. So this one is tough. It's probably Kawhi Leonard, though Duncan makes an incredibly compelling case. Having watched these games, though, and known what Kawhi Leonard was doing in these games, which is just everything. He was doing this. He was rebounding. He was defending LeBron, defending Dwayne Wade, defending everybody. I mean, he had to carry and shoulder such a huge load in these playoffs. And again, with the benefit of hindsight, we kind of knew what Kawhi would be. Now we know what Kawhi is going to be. At this time, we didn't. But I think at the end of these finals, we did kind of understand what Kawhi was going to be and what he was. So to me, this is Kawhi Leonard. I think the stats kind of back that up. The play on the court backs that up. Good case for Duncan. Really, really good case for Duncan. But I think this one has to go to Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, in the playoffs, Kawhi was scoring 14.3 points per game and 6.7 rebounds. Like, I mean, just to show you what the collective effort was for the Spurs. And you're right. Duncan obviously plays really well. They get, Thiago Splitter, guys who were good players but not special players step up and are big. Manu is another great playoffs. This was definitely a collective effort, but I do agree. You got to pick somebody. I think Kawhi is probably the best choice here, given the spark that he had. That defense on LeBron was really important. And you're right. This was kind of his. He wasn't a superstar yet. He wasn't producing like a superstar yet. But that would come very soon after this. And this kind of kicked it off. Obviously, wins that Finals MVP. Yeah, I agree with you on Kawhi.
Yeah, and again, benefit of hindsight, it's obviously Kawhi. I think at the time too, if you remember the conversations immediately following these playoffs, it was like, oh, Kawhi's a dude. Like, this is a guy. Like 2013, he kind of got exposed as not being quite ready yet, not quite being ready for the spotlight, not being quite ready for all that sort of stuff. And then 2014, he kind of proved, no, I'm ready for the spotlight, and I'm gonna just, he more than anybody, I think, willed this team to victory in 2014. One of the best, back-to-back NBA final seasons of all time. The Spurs and the Heat going neck to neck in 2013 and 2014. But yeah, this one's to me pretty easily Kawhi.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, 2017 and 2018 Warriors. Do we go with Steph? Do we go with Kevin Durant? Do we go Zaza Pachulia? Who knows? So, yeah, 2017, man, this is, they're both neck and neck, but this is definitely neck and neck. So, win shares in the regular season, 12.6 for Curry, 12 for Durant. In the playoffs, 3.4 for Curry, 3.1 for Durant. All the other advanced metrics, and honestly, just regular, scoring average. Curry in the regular season, 25.3 to 25.1 for Durant. In the playoffs, 28.1 for Curry, 28.5 for Durant. So in pretty much every metric you can measure here, advanced or otherwise. Very, very close. Durant was a little bit stronger in the regular season. He does miss 20 games because of injury in the regular season. Again, I don't know how that matters. You could be or how much it really should matter. I mean, you could argue that Curry had the better and more productive season, but was he the better player at the time? Well, there's only certain ways to measure that. For what it's worth, they were both second team All NBA. Yeah, this is tough. I'm not going to reach a conclusion here. I'm going to talk about 2018 first, and then we'll reach a conclusion for both on there. But any other thoughts on the 2017 season in particular?
Yeah, it's a strange Warriors year. I mean, obviously it was pretty easy for them. It was just like, oh wait, we're good, and now we have Durant, so now we're really good. And yeah, I think guys they're neck and neck at this time. And I think it was kind of this weird feeling out process of, hey, who's the guy on this team? And it was very split at this time. I really do think that you could flip a coin for either of these guys. The numbers kind of bear that out as well. Almost exactly the same numbers. Durant was like crazy efficient that year though, and just so good from all parts of the court. So yeah, it's a tough one, but no, we'll get to it with both, because I think we can wrap it up in one neat little package when we talk about 2018.
Yes, 2018. Honestly, pretty much the opposite. Curry performs a little bit better in the regular season. He's got a better PER, better box score plus minus, but he misses 31 games. So Durant missed 13 games, or 14 games. So they both had injuries. Durant was first team All NBA. Curry was third team. In the playoffs, Durant did play a bit better. Curry missed several playoff games as well. Only played 14 of the 21 playoff games. So yeah, and I would say that Durant overall did perform just slightly better in most respects than Durant. But again, really close. They both averaged 26.4 points in the regular season. Durant is 29 points. Curry is 25 points. Efficiency wise, they're both pretty similar, honestly. Again, a difficult thing to parse out. I'm going to have a cop out here. I'm going to say Curry in 2017, Durant in 2018. Just, hey, availability is a skill, right? They were there for basically the whole time. They stepped up when the other guy was injured, was out, which I guess that's important. I mean, they were playing at their best at that point. They were stepping up. They were keeping them ahead. So without really, we obviously both watched it. We both know they were really basically equally important to them being at championship level. Obviously, they were champion before Durant came along, and they've won a championship since then. But I mean, Durant was so important to what they do, and made it so much easier on everybody else as well. That you can't say that he wasn't incredibly valuable, and just about as valuable as Steph was during that time as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I completely forgot that they had these injuries during these seasons. I just remember them like always playing and just like always being great, and like, yeah, but again, they probably could afford them where he's like, you know what, I'll just take like 10 more games off because I don't need to be there, because Kevin Durant's there. Kevin Durant being like, I don't really need to be there because Steph Curry's there. So yeah, I don't really, I know they miss these games because I'm looking at the numbers, I'm seeing them happen. I just do not remember that happening whatsoever. But I think exactly, they were so close that I think you have to just include, hey, this guy played the full season this year and this guy played the full season last year, but you can really coin flip either of these guys. They were in almost every single way equals in the playoffs and in the regular season to help these teams win the titles. So
sure. In 2017, I mean, they won 67 games. They swept the first 3 rounds and they beat the Cavs 4-1 in the finals. 2018 was more of a struggle. They won only 58 games. Their SRS was only like third in the league, so they were obviously a good team, but they weren't a dominant regular season team. They almost lose to the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals. They were down, they were down 3-2, and they managed to rally. Only, the Houston just forgot how to shoot threes in Game 7, or else that might have changed things.
So what should we do? I don't know. Take more threes. We haven't made one in 28 attempts. I don't know. Take 8 more and see what happens.
See what happens. Yeah. But we can't miss this many, can we? Yeah,
we can't miss 30 in a row. That's ridiculous.
They did sweep the finals against the Cavs again, but I mean, the Cavs were also, they were.
The less said about that Cavs team, the better.
Right.
Let's just, the NBA Finals ended when the Houston Rockets were eliminated. So
right, exactly, yes. So
yeah, that finals. Let's just
right. Remember that? Well, LeBron had like a 50-point triple double in the first game, and then that J.R. Smith, game 1. That was crazy. Anyway.
Those Cavs teams. Oh,
yeah,
my God. People do not give enough credit for LeBron dragging those hapless
that last year, especially. Yeah.
Especially that team. Yeah, the team just dummies and idiots and has-beens.
Their second best player was J.R. Smith.
Right, who didn't know anything that was going on in the game at that point.
Yeah.
So. Right. But it was good. I like J.R. Smith. Anyway, 2020 Lakers. Let's go to them. Hey, LeBron, he's back again.
Speaking of J.R. Smith,
speaking of J.R. Oh, right. I forgot he was on.
Yeah.
2020. This was another team of has-beens and whatnots and all these people. But hey, he also had Anthony Davis, and that helped a lot. So now we have the 2020 Lakers, who is the best between Anthony Davis and LeBron. So I think it's a pretty solid bait, and it's pretty juicy. So obviously we have a super, super, super weird season broken up by the pandemic and a bubble playoffs or whatever. But Anthony Davis does play 62 games that year. LeBron plays 67. So we're close in terms of those two guys' games played. Davis performs better than LeBron in the regular season, getting 11.1 win shares, averaging a team-high 26.1 points, and grabbing 9.3 rebounds. Now LeBron, he's LeBron. 25.3 points per game, 10.2 assists per game, 7.8 rebounds per game, 9.8 win shares. On regular season alone, you probably give it to Davis. In the playoffs, though, it becomes a different story. LeBron is super, super close in everything. Davis still has the point per game lead, but only by 0.01 point per game. Davis's line is 27.7 points per game, 9.7 rebounds per game, and 3.5 assists per game for 4.5 win shares. LeBron, though, very nearly averages a triple-double in the finals, 27.6 points per game, 10.8 rebounds per game, and 8.8 assists per game for a 4.3 win shares. LeBron wins finals MVP, and it's kind of hard to argue with. I think I'm going with LeBron here on the merits of it being LeBron, him very clearly being the engine that made the team go. And to me, Davis clearly benefiting from LeBron being his teammate. Now, obviously, LeBron benefited greatly from Anthony Davis being his teammate. That's how that works. When you have two good players, they benefit from each other. It's very, very close. I can hear an argument for Davis, but for me, I got to go with LeBron here.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. Again, without the absence of stronger evidence in front of for AD, I got to go with LeBron because it's either close or in favor of LeBron. It's close enough that there's no compelling reason to give it to AD. I mean, he played really well in those playoffs and in those finals, and he hit that huge shot in against Denver in the earlier in the playoffs to that game winner. So he did some great stuff long and was really important for that playoff run. But yeah, it's LeBron. It's hard to argue against LeBron again without stronger evidence. Just got to go with LeBron by default.
Yeah, and there was games where it felt like Davis was kind of leading them, and it did feel like, hey, this is. But a lot of that was like, hey, Anthony Davis finally figured out how to use his body, and hey, Anthony Davis finally figured out how to be great and be that sort of stuff. And then like while all that's happening, LeBron is just being LeBron in the background and just being absolutely, absolutely incredible. So
right,
I go with LeBron here.
Yeah, right. He has the ball in his hand so much more, doing all that stuff.
Yeah, he's just doing everything really on the court. Right. And like again, if you want to make a case for Davis, I think a case could be made, but for me, I think it's LeBron.
Exactly. So, all right. So that is it. We have gotten through all, however many years of NBA, ABA history, however
all of them.
Many we have. Yeah.
Did it all.
Right. We did it all. Yeah. NBL, ABA, everything. So, all right. So who has been the best, the most? So we've counted the people who have won multiple times, been the best player on a championship team. So Bill Russell did it 8 times. George Mikan did it 7 times. Michael Jordan did it 6 times. Magic Johnson and LeBron James both did it 4 times. Steph Curry, Larry Bird, John Havlicek, Shaquille O'Neal, and Tim Duncan all did it 3 times. And Julius Erving, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kobe Bryant, Wilt Chamberlain, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Kawhi Leonard all did it twice. So there have been 49 players who we believe can say that they were the best player on a championship team from the 89 championship teams that we considered between the NBA, ABA, BAA, and NBL.
There it is.
That's it. Yeah.
So officially, Bill Russell, your greatest of all time. There you go.
Officially, yeah. That's it.
Number 2, George Mikan. We're just gonna go. This is the official
That's
now.
The best. Yeah.
Official
Right.
list of the top players of all time. Bill Russell, George Mikan, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Steph Curry. There's your top 5, and then we're no more debates. So
yeah.
Oh,
Fair
6.
enough.
That was top 6. Sorry, that was 6.
Top 6. Yeah,
so
that's all right.
Steph Curry, you're out of there, pal. Top 5. I just gave it
all
to
right.
you there. Lock it in. It's set in stone forever. But that's pretty. I mean, that when you look at that list, that's, I mean, not maybe the order of it, but like those are the dudes, you know what I mean? Like Havlicek
not the
might
worst
be the
list
one
ever. Yeah,
that
right.
like people would like brush up against, but Bill Russell, George Mikan, MJ, Magic, LeBron, Steph, Bird,
Curry, Shaq,
Dr.
Duncan.
J, Tim Duncan, Kareem, Kobe, Wilt, Hakeem, Kawhi Leonard.
Maybe not Kawhi Leonard, but I mean, most of those guys, I would say, you could make a top 10 case for, almost all those guys.
Right.
Except probably Havlicek and Kawhi. Maybe Kawhi could get there. So that's a pretty good list. So
if Kawhi decides to play again, which I don't know, maybe.
Maybe.
Hey
maybe
Kawhi,
not.
What's your injury? I don't know. All right, no problem. Whenever you're ready, pal.
It sucks to hurt. Yeah. All right.
Like, my man takes 2 years off for an ACL, but hey, it's fine.
Yeah. Hey.
But then he comes back and wins a title, so it's like, oh shit.
Sure. All right. I guess. Why not?
If it works, it works. But this is fun. I enjoyed doing this. We did it. We're done. Yeah.
We're done. Yeah. Hopefully everyone, Doug, this was a lot of fun to do. Of course, feel free to yell at us nicely on social media. We are on Twitter and Facebook at Over and Back NBA. You're into what we're doing. Wherever you listen to us, please leave a rating and review. So it just makes us feel better and helps other listeners perhaps, discover the show and learn about NBA history themselves. So hopefully everyone dug this. It's been great doing another show. Rich, thanks very much. Appreciate all your hard work on this. And thanks everyone for listening. We're back again soon.